In a grand showroom filled with the gleam of polished steel and the scent of fresh oil, the company's top executives stood proudly beside a revolutionary engine. It was the highlight of the day, their biggest achievement yet. The female CEO, Victoria Hayes, walked in with her signature poise, her heels echoing on the marble floor. She had built her empire on discipline and perfection. When she reached the engine, she stopped. Its sleek design and rhythmic hum caught her attention instantly. It wasn't just a machine, it was art in motion. She smiled faintly, then turned to the crowd. "Who designed this engine?" she asked. The room fell silent. Engineers exchanged nervous glances, unsure of who should speak. Victoria's smile faded slightly as she waited for an answer. Then from the far corner a small voice broke the heavy quiet. "My father did," said a little girl holding a worn lunchbox, her voice trembling but proud. The crowd turned to look at her, tiny, with oil smudges on her dress, standing beside a man in a greasy uniform. The CEO's sharp eyes followed the child's pointing finger until they landed on the man behind her. He wasn't an executive. He wasn't even wearing a company badge. The man's name was Amir Khan, a simple mechanic who had worked in the lower workshops for years. His hands were rough, his clothes old, but his eyes carried a quiet brilliance. He stepped forward slowly, bowing his head. "It was just something I've been working on, ma'am," he said humbly. The CEO raised an eyebrow. "You?" she asked in disbelief. Amir nodded. "Yes, ma'am. I wanted to fix the overheating issue the engines had. I tried a new design." The engineers in the room stiffened, embarrassed. None of them had managed to solve that problem in months. Victoria's expression softened, curiosity replacing skepticism. She gestured for him to come closer. "Show me," she said. Amir hesitated, then began explaining the modifications: simpler cooling chambers, adjusted piston alignment, and a custom valve design he had crafted from scrap. As he spoke, the CEO leaned in, listening intently. His explanation was clear, confident, and ingenious. The engineers exchanged uneasy looks. The man they'd ignored for years had outperformed them. Victoria finally spoke, her tone quieter now. "You did this alone?" Amir glanced down at his daughter, who smiled proudly. "Not alone, ma'am. She helped. She handed me tools and kept me awake with stories." The room, filled with executives in suits, fell silent once more, this time out of respect. The CEO straightened her posture, her eyes studying Amir's face. "You've created something remarkable," she said. "Do you realize what this could mean for our company?" Amir shook his head modestly. "I just wanted it to run better, ma'am. I didn't think beyond that." Victoria's expression softened further. She saw something in him, a spark she hadn't seen in years. "Sometimes," she said thoughtfully, "the best ideas don't come from titles, but from passion." Her words echoed across the hall, and even the proud engineers bowed their heads slightly. Later that day, Victoria invited Amir to her office. It was a sleek, glass-walled space overlooking the city skyline. Amir sat nervously in front of her desk, holding his cap in his hands. His daughter sat beside him, eyes wide with wonder. "Tell me," Victoria said gently, "why didn't you present this idea to anyone?" Amir hesitated before replying, "Because, ma'am, no one listens to a mechanic. They think we're just here to repair, not to create." Victoria leaned back, silent for a moment. The truth of his words stung. She had built a company that valued innovation, but somehow real talent had been buried under hierarchy. She stood up and walked to the window, her reflection merging with the skyline. "You remind me of my father," she said quietly. "He was a mechanic too. He taught me that intelligence isn't about education, it's about vision." Samir looked up, surprised. "He must have been a great man," he said. Victoria smiled faintly. "He was, and like you, no one believed in him, until he built something the world couldn't ignore." She turned to face him. "You've done the same today." Her tone carried both pride and warmth, a rare glimpse beneath her strong exterior. Amir lowered his gaze, overwhelmed. A few weeks later, the company held a press event to unveil the new engine to the world. The showroom buzzed with reporters, investors, and industry experts. Cameras flashed as Victoria took the stage. "Today," she began, "we present not just an engine, but a story of perseverance, creativity, and heart." Then she looked toward the side of the stage. "Please welcome the man who made this possible, our own mechanic, Amir Khan." The crowd erupted in applause. Amir stepped onto the stage, his daughter clutching his hand. Tears shimmered in her eyes as she saw her father receive the recognition he had long deserved. Victoria turned toward him and smiled. "You've shown us what true innovation looks like," she said. "It doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes it wears overalls and carries a lunchbox." The audience applauded louder, moved by the humility in her words. Amir tried to speak, but emotion caught in his throat. "Thank you," he finally said. "I never wanted fame. I just wanted to build something that worked." The CEO nodded. "And that's why you deserve it." She handed him a plaque engraved with his name and the words, "The heart behind the engine." His daughter hugged him tightly, whispering, "I'm proud of you, Papa." As months passed, the new engine became a global success, saving the company millions and earning awards for innovation. But more importantly, it changed the company's culture. Victoria implemented a new program, encouraging workers from all levels to share their ideas. She called it the Mechanic's Mind. Amir was appointed as the head of this initiative, mentoring young engineers and workers who dreamed beyond their roles. His daughter often joined him, sketching new designs beside him as he taught others the value of curiosity and persistence. The once-forgotten mechanic had become a symbol of possibility. Years later, when Victoria retired, she invited Amir and his now-grown daughter to her farewell ceremony. She walked up to them smiling warmly. "You two changed more than just an engine," she said. "You reminded me why I started all this, to build a world where talent speaks louder than titles." Amir bowed slightly. "And you gave us the chance to prove it." Victoria handed him a small box. Inside was a miniature version of the engine they had built, engraved with the words, "Built with Heart." The moment was silent but powerful. It was a farewell, not just to a leader, but to a legacy built on respect. The company's headquarters now holds a glass display of that first engine, standing tall in the lobby. Visitors stop to read the plaque beneath it. Designed by Amir Khan, mechanic and dreamer, recognized by Victoria Hayes, the leader who believed. The reflection of that engine gleams like a reminder to all who walk by that greatness doesn't come from where you stand, but from how much you believe. And somewhere in that reflection, the story of a father, a daughter, and a woman who dared to see beyond appearances continues to inspire every heart that dreams. The mechanic looked nervous, unsure what to say, as whispers rippled through the grand hall. The air felt thick with disbelief. The female CEO, Victoria Steele, known for her authority and sharp instincts, began walking toward him slowly. Each click of her heels on the marble floor sounded like a countdown. The crowd parted silently, their eyes locked on the unlikely pair, a powerful CEO and a humble mechanic standing face to face. "You built this?" she asked at last, her tone gentler now, her curiosity genuine. "Yes, ma'am," he replied, his voice trembling with both fear and pride. Victoria studied him closely, as if trying to read the truth in his eyes. His uniform was stained with oil, his face worn from years of labor, yet there was something in his expression, calm determination. "Just an idea I worked on after hours," he added quietly. The CEO turned her gaze to the engine again, the masterpiece that had stunned her entire research department. It was sleek, efficient, and running flawlessly. For a moment she said nothing. Then, almost to herself, she whispered, "You've done what my entire research team couldn't." The words hung in the air, freezing everyone in place. The engineers exchanged awkward glances. Some looked angry, others ashamed. How could a workshop mechanic, a man they'd barely noticed, accomplish what their advanced degrees and laboratories couldn't? The little girl standing near her father smiled proudly, clutching her lunchbox tighter. The mechanic lowered his head, his voice barely audible as he said, "I just wanted to make something better." For her. Victoria's eyes flickered with emotion. It wasn't ambition or competition that had driven him. It was love. The hall, moments ago filled with noise, now felt sacredly silent. Even the hum of the engine seemed softer, almost respectful. Victoria took a deep breath and looked around. "Everyone clear the room," she said suddenly. Her tone was calm but firm, leaving no room for argument. Within minutes the hall emptied, leaving only her, the mechanic, and his daughter. She stepped closer to the engine, running her fingers across its polished surface. "Tell me everything," she said. "How did you do it?" The mechanic hesitated, then began to explain how he noticed flaws in the company's designs, how he stayed after hours, testing and adjusting, often sleeping in the workshop. He spoke with simplicity, not boasting, but every word revealed brilliance born from experience, not textbooks. Victoria listened intently, her sternness softening with each detail. "So you did this without funding, without a team, and with spare parts?" she asked, almost in disbelief. "Yes, ma'am," he replied. "Just what I could find lying around." She smiled faintly, impressed. "You remind me of my father," she said suddenly. He looked up, surprised. "He was a mechanic too," she continued, her eyes distant with memory. "He used to say, 'A machine only listens to those who respect it.' That's why I became an engineer before I became a CEO." For the first time, the man saw something human in her, the same fire he carried within. She turned to his daughter, kneeling down slightly. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Aisha," the little girl said shyly. Victoria smiled warmly. "You must be very proud of your father." Aisha nodded, her eyes sparkling. "He told me machines can feel when you care about them." The CEO laughed softly. "He's right." Then, standing tall again, she said, "Mr. Amir, your work deserves recognition. But tell me, why didn't you come forward earlier?" Amir sighed. "People like me aren't meant to be noticed, ma'am. I just fix things. People up there, they build them." His voice carried quiet pain that Victoria could not ignore. She looked at him thoughtfully. It then said, "Maybe it's time we change that." She called her assistant and ordered, "Prepare a detailed presentation of this engine. Tomorrow morning, we're showing it to the board. And make sure Mr. Amir Khan is credited as its lead designer." The assistant hesitated, shocked. "Mom, he's not—" "I know exactly who he is," Victoria interrupted. "And that's why this will mean something." The next morning, the boardroom was filled with executives, analysts, and investors. Amir stood nervously near the back, his daughter sitting beside him. Victoria stood at the head of the table, confidence radiating from her. She began her presentation by showing the company's previous designs, their flaws, their limitations. Then she introduced the new engine, designed by a man who works with his hands, not spreadsheets. Murmurs spread instantly. "This engine," she continued, "is not just a mechanical breakthrough. It's a reminder that innovation can come from anyone, anywhere." She turned to Amir. "Stand up." "Mr. Khan." He rose hesitantly as cameras flashed. The room erupted in surprise. "This," Victoria said proudly, "is the man who created what our company's best minds couldn't." The applause started slowly but soon filled the room. Amir's daughter clapped the loudest. After the meeting, investors surrounded them, eager to learn more. Amir, overwhelmed, struggled to speak. Victoria placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Get used to it," she said with a smile. "You've earned it." Over the following months, Amir's design revolutionized the company's products, increasing efficiency and reducing costs. Victoria promoted him to lead the new innovation department, where he mentored young engineers. But despite the new title and respect, Amir remained humble, always reminding his team, "It's not about who you are, it's about what you give your heart to." His words became a motto within the company. Victoria often visited the workshop to see the progress. Each time, she saw Amir and Aisha working together, father and daughter surrounded by blueprints and dreams. It reminded her of her own father, and she often thought about how proud he would have been to see this. One evening, as the sunset painted the city gold, Victoria approached Amir. "You've changed this company," she said sincerely. "But more than that, you've changed me." Amir looked surprised. "How so, ma'am?" I used to think leadership meant control, she said softly. Now I know it means listening to the ones no one else hears. Years later, when Victoria retired, the company held a grand farewell event. In the lobby stood a new display, a replica of the engine that had changed everything. On its base, a plaque read, "Built by Amir Khan, inspired by his daughter, believed by Victoria Steele." Reporters asked her what the inscription meant. She smiled and said, "It means every great idea begins with someone who dares to care." Amir, now head of innovation, stood beside her proudly. Aisha, grown into an engineer herself, adjusted her father's tie before the ceremony. "You did it, Papa," she whispered. "No," he replied softly. "We did." The hall echoed with applause as Victoria gave her final speech. "This company was built on machines," she said. "But it runs on people, dreamers, believers, builders." She looked toward Amir. "He taught me that true innovation isn't found in titles or degrees, but in the courage to imagine more." The audience rose in a standing ovation. In that moment, Amir realized something profound. His invention may have changed the company, but his story had changed hearts. The same question that once made the room go silent, "Who built this engine?" was now an eternal reminder that greatness can rise from the humblest of hands.